Lots to talk about tonight with MSNBC political analyst Howard Fineman, also the senior Washington correspondent for Newsweek magazine. Good evening, Howard.
Hi, David.
Howard, is this shaping up to be merely the sound of rebellion before the Bush administration gets exactly what it wants, or is there enough opposition and perhaps enough backbone on Capitol Hill that those significant sticking points might actually be resolved before possible passage?
Well, David, this isn't just the sound of rebellion. With each passing minute, with each minute of the hearings today, I think the questions grew, the opposition deepened, and I think the rebellion is real. Now, what that means in the end, I think, as you're indicating, is that the Democrats and other critics of this, including a lot of Republicans, are going to get a lot of what they want. They're going to get more detail. They're going to get more protection directly for homeowners. The measures that Hank Paulson called punitive about golden parachutes for bank CEOs are going to be put in place, and the oversight is going to be real and it is going to be deep. So I think the rebellion is real.
Howard, it used to be that the mere mention of Vice President Cheney would be enough to quell a conservative rebellion. What's the story there?
Well, David, as Politico was saying, there was a revolt there today. They don't believe Dick Cheney anymore. He has used up a lot of credibility. The Republicans are the ones who followed Dick Cheney over the edge of the cliff, in the view of many of them privately, on the war in Iraq. He's the one who said that there was a slam-dunk war to be won in Mesopotamia, and a lot of Republicans don't like it. Also, the Bush-Cheney White House has been pretty cavalier in its attitude toward Congress, including, if not especially, Republicans in Congress. They've basically ignored them. And there are two other points, David. A lot of the young Republicans in Congress are populist Republicans. They're not Wall Street Republicans. They're not old-fashioned Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger Republicans who care about Wall Street, number one. And number two, they are all people who don't like the idea of big government. And they're aware of the fact that both because of the war in Iraq, the passage of the Patriot Act, and now these big bailouts, the Bush administration has presided over the biggest expansion of federal power since the New Deal, and these Republican backbenchers don't like it, and they blame Cheney for it.
Now, as far as the Democratic side of the aisle is concerned, is this the Democrats' chance to veto the kind of blank check authority that they gave the Bush administration on the Iraq War, something that Congress could never dial back again? I mean, does it look as if they might have learned their lesson?
Well, I think that's the sentiment among many of the ones that I've talked to, but I think it's the wrong sentiment. I mean, they can't be fighting the last war here. Ironically, they should have had the backbone back then to oppose the war. Now, if they decide they're going to scuttle any bailout bill just to teach Bush a lesson, I think they'll be making a big mistake. And I think in the end, that's not what's going to motivate them. I think they want to do something here, David, but I think they want the protections for homeowners. They want the clamping down on the CEOs of the big banks and the financial institutions. They want the oversight. They probably won't get the equity stake they're talking about. I think Paulson will draw the line there, but they're going to insist on a lot of these things before they wave this thing on through.
And are they getting any of the details in terms of the mechanism by which the federal government will determine the value of these bad loans and bad debts when the private market couldn't do that?
That's right, and that's, I think, one of the things Hank Paulson is looking for by wanting to shield from second-guessing by administrative agencies or the courts his valuation of these assets, because that's the key to the whole thing. That's why Paulson put that language in there that you showed at the beginning of the segment, but Congress isn't going to stand for that.
If Democrats in Congress and conservative Republican lawmakers are resisting this proposal for obviously vastly different reasons, reasons that, of course, could not be more different, how is consensus ever going to be reached?
Well, I think we're in a dangerous time here, David, because we're at the end of an administration that has very little credibility left with either the American people, the Congress, or the world for that matter. George Bush had basically checked out before he was dragged back up to the bridge for this. Also, Barack Obama and John McCain are not rushing back to Washington to take command of this situation, as in fact I think they probably should, but after all, they're not in power yet. So we have this odd situation where an outgoing administration is writing the script for whichever the new man becomes the next president. Obama and McCain arguably should be here, should be in the thick of it, but they're kind of playing a game of chicken in reverse. Neither of them wants to take responsibility for what Congress is about to do.
Howard Fineman of Newsweek and MSNBC, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, David.